Hello friends, welcome to a little reading vlog. I'm currently reading 2 books and I think precisely halfway through both of them. So I have 2 more days if I want to finish them by the end of January. First book is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This is a non-fiction, it's a memoir. She tells her story in a very abusive relationship. This is also one of the first queer abusive relationships that I've read about. It has chapters like this, for example. Each little tiny chapter has its own theme. Here you will learn that a common feature of domestic abuse is dislocation. She is made vulnerable by her circumstance, her isolation, and so she has to struggle against an unchangeable landscape that has been hammered into existence by nothing less than time itself. A house that is too big to dismantle by hand. A situation too complex and overwhelming to master on her own. This is how you are toughened. This is where the tenacity of love is practiced. Its tensile strength, its durability. You are being tested and you are passing the test. Such a complex situation to love someone that you have been manipulated to think that is a different person than who they actually are. Yeah, I've just been obviously loving it so far. I'm still going through the trenches. The story is still very dark. I'm so eager to see the other side. The second book that I've been reading is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, a book we know and a book we love. This is a reread. I read this before on ebook 2021, December 2021. I remember it crystal clear. It became one of my favorite. On my birthday next year, I actually got this special edition. I've been meaning to reread it, but after I finished a pretty mediocre fantasy book, which was the Atlas 6, I felt kind of disheartened. So I was just like, I need a pick-me-up. I need a book that feeling when you read a really good book and you're just over the moon. I started crying. The first page of this book made me cry. There's just so much emotion that I place in these characters in the story. So The Song of Achilles is a retelling of a Greek mythology story. So she felt like Achilles and Patroclus were obviously lovers, and because they were same-sex relationship, it was kind of maybe just say that they're really good friends. Achilles is just kind of this golden boy, so innocent, so pure, so untouched by anything bad in his life, has always lived adored by everyone and with so much ease, and he just glides through the world. And then Patroclus is this very rejected boy by his parents. He comes from a very destructured family, and it's not a perfect retelling in the story. Patroclus is really not a great fighter, and then I think in the original myth he's a really good fighter or something like that. So it has changes. Madeline Miller's writing style really connects with me, and it's so beautiful, but it's so straight to the point. It pierces right through the feeling. But anyways, I'm now halfway through and things are starting to get sad and intense. When will this book be adapted? Will this book be adapted? Will you wear wig? When will you wear wig? Okay. Oh, I'm also reading another book on my books app. I'm actually reading Gift of Therapy. Actually, I'm 83%. I think in Be Not Afraid of Love, Mimizu mentions this therapist or this book. I'm definitely going to finish this also by the end of January. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this vlog. Might be a little long because I get sidetracked and I rant a lot, so bear with me. I hope you enjoy this, and let's get reading. happy Wednesday. Today's the 31st of January. Just got home. I went to pick up my books. So the first one that I got, which was the mindfulness coloring book. This was actually a recommendation from one of my tutors when her mind was racing, especially, or when she felt like she really needed to have kind of like some downtime. She sat down and she colored a little in this particular coloring book. She says that drawings in here are done purposefully so that you spend a lot of time coloring like the tiny details for a couple of minutes and just think of nothing else other than what you're coloring. I really want it to be like a mindful experience. I'm so used to having so much noise all the time. Like, I always need to be consuming something, so I feel like it would be a nice practice, something tactile and like something that doesn't require me to look at a screen. I feel like while journaling, I'm always like trying to think about how the page is turning out. Here, it's kind of like, it doesn't really matter. Oh, there's a mushroom page. That is so cute. Next, I got this mindfulness journal by Corinne Sweet. I literally thought that this was a journal that I could write in. Isn't this kind of misleading? It's a nice prompt to turn to whenever I'm feeling kind of bored and I don't want to like journal. But yeah, that is the little haul. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about. I highly believe in meditation, mindfulness. Try to be more present, especially if you deal with anxiety and stuff like that. However, this is not a cure to anxiety. It's a coping mechanism and kind of a practice that allows me to maintain a sort of presence. However, it doesn't substitute other forms of therapy. Kind of like a shower, you know, you kind of rinse and repeat, and to me it feels like that. I have a lot to do today, so having lunch, still need to go to the gym, have a couple of emails to respond to, edit my video, and that's enough. That's too much already. Talk soon. Today we're gonna go through my shelves to see what are the books that I can possibly read for February. So I've read everything here except part of the Virginia Woolf Diaries. This part right here, I also have read everything. This is kind of the majority of my classics and just random pieces and books that I really like. From this shelf, I have The Testaments left to read. This is part 2 to The Handmaid's Tale, which I actually haven't read. From the classics, I have yet to read these two, which are complete poems by Emily Bronte. And this is actually a book that I was seriously considering to be my next read. And then Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I feel like Frankenstein I definitely would like to read more during the autumn time. Poems of Emily Bronte are passionate and powerful works that convey the vitality of the human spirit and the natural world. Many poems describe the mythic country of Gondal and its citizens that she imagined with her sister Anne, and remain the only surviving record of their joint creation. I'm leaving Emily Bronte out because I already feel like this is a contestant for me. We have a Jane Austen, Northanger Abbey, two Portuguese kind of somber books, Lonely by António Nobre, Where is Happiness by Camille Castelo. Those definitely remind me of summer. Here we have more classics that I have yet to read. So here we have two Daphne du Maurier's. I'm actually quite inclined to start also reading My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. I was really curious when I got this, so I had to read a couple of chapters. I'm actually going to put it in the pile next to Emily Bronte. From here we have another Daphne, which is Jamaica Inn, and we have 2 Virginia Woolfs that I haven't read. Here is my fantasy shelf, which I have the sequel to Legendborn left to read, which is Bloodmarked, and I'm actually feeling pretty drawn to read this as well because I really like fantasy and I really want to read something that transports me, so I'm gonna put it in a pile. I also have King of Scars and Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo. I don't know exactly what this shelf is to read. I have left Lord Byron's selected poem, Lolita by Nabokov. Started to read A Room with a View by E.M. Forster in the summer, and then I just wasn't getting into it, and I was just like, I'm sure this is a wonderful book, it's just up my alley, so I need to read it when I'm feeling like it, or else it's not gonna work. And then here I have my José Saramago books, A Jangada de Pedra, a sort of sequel to Blindness, Ensaio sobre a Lucidez. I feel like I already have a pretty nice selection to start February with, however, here is just the last shelf, just for completion. So To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I feel kind of afraid to pick this one up. It is tiny, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be mighty and devastating, so I have this one to read. And this short story collection, The Book of Dragons. Here we go, we have 3 books that we selected. Very happy with the selection. Definitely feels like February to me. We have Bloodmarked. This is a fantasy YA. We follow Bree. In the past book, she kind of uncovered the truth about her origins, her family, her mother, the source, and the extent of her magical powers. In the first book, there wasn't enough of the folklore elements, which I really enjoyed. I really want to see more of that, but we'll see how it actually pans out. Next, we have My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. 3 chapters already, highlighting a lot. I'm very excited. I love Daphne du Maurier writing so much, but I've only read Rebecca from her, which is now one of my favorite books. Next, we have The Complete Poems by Emily Bronte. What a cover, first of all. I got this book from the famous library in Porto, which I went to in December. I spent one night there. I wanted to make use of the time that I had while I was on vacation, and it was very wonderful. I caught just the best weather, and it was also like a very calm trip where I had a lot of time to read. I walked around a lot. I went to the cozy stores. I read The Bell Jar while I was there. That also was such a wonderful 5-star read for me, even though the themes of the book are so dark in The Bell Jar. It was like a very impactful read. It tackles mental health and depression, and it's semi-biographical. I have so much to say about that book. But yeah, I read that while in Porto. I'm so in love with Lisbon that I often forget that I can jump around to other cities in Portugal really easily. It's such a cozy, vibrant, colorful, and calm city. I was attacked by a seagull. She tried to steal my sandwich. The morning of the second day, I went to Lelu bookstore, which is this incredibly beautiful bookstore. It's so popular that they have a fee now to enter the bookstore, which does make sense because I can imagine a lot of people go there and they don't actually purchase a book. And there was a José Saramago exposition there, and yeah, I had a wonderful time. But I'm going to make a little mid-afternoon snack and we can read a little together, start the books. I'm very excited. have just 5 minutes before I go to work. So I wanted to give a little update to My Cousin Rachel. It is a romance thriller and it's really reminiscent of Rebecca. The first chapter kind of spoils a little bit. So we have Philip and we have his cousin Rachel, and then we have Ambrose, which is the husband of Rachel. I'm not gonna say anything else just in case it spoils something. We already know from the first chapter that there's a lot of imminent danger, imminent death, and the prospects are not good. So far, I am so anxious and so pissed. I'm just like, open your eyes, see the world around you, please. It's a very easy novel. It's beautiful. So far, I highly recommend, even though it's so frustrating. But yeah, I'm excited to read the book. After work, I'm gonna go to the gym, and then when I get home, I'll continue reading. So here in Portugal right now, there's a lot of rain, a lot of wind. Yesterday was not a great mental health day. I feel like the week started super well, but then just a lot of stuff started happening and getting progressively more in my head. Yesterday I didn't do any reading. We're gonna make a nice cup of decaf coffee because it's way too late to get caffeine in my system right now. We're just going to read and try to see if we can finish Cousin Rachel.
Early that night, 'cause you'll never ask me to spend the night. I shouldn't leave my friends behind. I'm doing it again. All night, I left your party early that night, 'cause I don't think I was meant to get the invite. You're nothing like you when they're around, so I get my shoes and
There's 10 pages left. I think I know where it's gonna go, but
too much to ask for. Oh yeah, too much to ask of.
Today is Sunday. Let's do a little wrap up. Let's begin with the nonfiction In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This is a memoir from Carmen about the relationship with another woman that drove her life to a living hell. And besides tackling the very difficult situation that is the violence and abuse in an intimate relationship, it also tackles how people see abuse between women. Some people believe that there's no abuse between women, so it tackles the expectations in a queer relationship like that. And it's also such a tender way to approach trauma, in the sense that it doesn't shy away from explaining the signs that the person doesn't see or the reasons why they were vulnerable to that situation, but it also gives you enough grace and respect for your past self. Another takeaway that I got from the book that was really important was that this will continue to haunt you, and it's something that cannot be easily erased as soon as the person steps away from your life for good. There's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of anger, a lot of sadness in the cycles of abuse that you've endured. It's good to find this kindness and this gentleness for yourself, which is so much easier said than done. I really appreciated the book. Secondly, it's a very interesting stylistic choice. So the short chapters with the different themes and revolving around the motif of the dream house, and also around the very interesting historic bits that she included in the book. She has this wonderful sense of humor. She included this interactive piece. It's a choose your own adventure to give the reader an illusion that you have a choice in how you are handling the abuser, or how you try to defuse the bomb that is a situation like that. And you know, it's just an illusion. You don't really have a choice, or you don't really have a way out. I read The Gift of Therapy, an open letter to a new generation of therapists and their patients by Irvin Yalom. So I felt a little bit misled by the book because this is definitely a book for therapists. It's not for patients. So it can be read by both, but I feel like it's definitely a lot more direction to therapists. So let me know if you have any recommendations for me. I didn't agree with some things that were said in the book. And so as always, just try to read with a grain of salt, even though it's a bit difficult when you read a book by a very well-known therapist. There are good takeaways. There were takeaways that made me a little bit more dumbfounded. Lastly, the mindfulness journal, which again didn't really want to compromise, I feel like, and I think that's the fault of the book. It says that it gives you prompts to journal. It's sometimes just one quote and then all of this blank space, and I suppose it's because it's giving you space to write. Also, I feel like the prompts all kind of gravitate towards the same thing is really helpful, but I feel like it ended up being really surface level. Next, we're gonna go to fiction. I don't think there's anything else more than I can add about Song of Achilles. I feel like I've said so much praise already. I don't think I can add anything else, only that I will continue eagerly waiting for the day when she publishes a new book. I need one more book from her. Now let's talk about My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier, which at first I thought, oh, I'm not really being fair with the book because I keep comparing it to Rebecca. However, I feel like it is so reminiscent of it. Both books, the main theme is the peeling of the curtain to see behind a marriage and behind a partnership, to see that it's their own private little torture and hell. Again, in My Cousin Rachel, just as in Rebecca, there's this very close relationship between love and hate. The narrator is a very naive and almost blind character, and also, of course, the similarity of the names Rachel and Rebecca. Both books have very similar themes, even though the stories are very different, and even though I feel like in My Cousin Rachel there's some of the most beautiful things I've ever read in my life. In Rebecca, I did not know where the book was going to go. I could not predict it. I had a heart attack reading that book, and it changed my brain chemistry. In My Cousin Rachel, I definitely predicted pretty much everything. I saw it right away. I sensed it from miles, and I feel like a lot of readers will too. Even though there could be a double meaning and a second lens through which you can look at the plot and at the characters, I personally didn't feel enough ambiguity in the mystery. In the end, I was like, I have like a decision in my mind, and I feel like Daphne likes this play with the reader where she likes to leave these little clues and ambiguity to kind of play with the reader what we think about the morality of the characters' actions, or what we think in the end, if it was retribution or if it was compensation. I felt much more that present in Rebecca personally for me than in My Cousin Rachel. However, it is still so beautiful. She is so gifted in writing. Whether his spirit left his body and came home here to mine, taking possession so that he lived again in me, repeating his own mistakes, caught the disease once more, and perished twice. Go back if you will, I said, but not just yet. Give me a few weeks more to hold in memory. I am no traveler. You are my world. Just for her writing style, I will read anything she has ever written. The next two books, which are Emily Bronte poems and Bloodmarked, I actually have not finished, and so I'm going to talk briefly about. If you want a bigger conclusion to what I've rated them or how I found them, you always have my Goodreads where I post reviews. Yeah, Bloodmarked I literally started today, so it was nice to jump back in the world. However, I'm already finding, like, even from the first few chapters, I'm already finding it a bit repetitive. She's literally telling you what has happened, how she is feeling, and so I feel like it's a lot tell and not show. And the book is pretty big, and it has a really tiny font. In fantasy books like this, it's like, I hope that they're not just like stalling the book, going around in circles just for the sake of making the book lengthy. Now, this will steal anyone's show. Emily Bronte's poems, these are so good. The last poetry that I read was from Sylvia Plath. I feel like in the Sylvia Plath poems, the reader has to work so hard to understand, and you have to take so much time with each poem. Mary Oliver, for example, is like the exact opposite. The poems are really simple, but they're also really beautiful. And I feel like Emily Bronte is this beautiful mid-term. It doesn't take away anything from the beauty of the poems, it doesn't take away from any cleverness, and I also really like this introspective pondering of everything will come to an end one day, where will we go? And also I feel like, if I think also remembering Sylvia Plath has a much more finite and much more depressing view of her life. As for Emily, so far I've read only a couple of her poems, but so far she has a lot of wonder and a lot of openness towards nature and towards a possible fate that is guiding her. And so I feel like the outside world for Emily really helped her and really guided her and gave her some solace. And as for Sylvia, she felt completely suffocated into this jar, literally. So yeah, I will continue reading it. Again, Goodreads review after I finish it, probably. Thank you so much for listening to what I have to say, to what I think about these books. I appreciate it so much, and I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you have a lovely week ahead of you. Let me know what you've been reading as well. What were the books that you've recently enjoyed so much that blew you away? And yeah, I will see you very soon.